The Dr. Taz Show, the podcast. Dr. Taz, Superwoman Wellness. Here's Dr. Taz.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Superwoman Wellness, where I am determined to bring you back to your superpowered self. How many of you are feeling overwhelmed, stressed to the max, and really uncertain about the future? I know that has been the theme the last year or so, and it is starting to get really old, and many of you are telling me how burned out you are. Well, I am so thrilled to bring you, and so timely, I must say, Christine Arylo. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Christine. You can correct me. But she has written a book called Overwhelmed and Over It. Appropriate, right? As a transformational leadership advisor, 3-time best-selling author, and host of the popular Feminine Power Time podcast, she is recognized worldwide for her work in helping women to make shifts happen in the lives they lead, the work they do, and the world that they wish to create. She offers workshops globally and lives near Seattle, near the water, which she just showed me. Welcome to the show, Christine.
Thank you
for joining me.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Dr. Taz, and hello, everyone. It's great to be with you all.
Well, I can't believe how timely this is and so important. What inspired you to write Overwhelmed and Over It?
Well, I love that you have the name Superwoman in your show, because this actually goes back for me over 10 years ago when I had my first what's called the Superwoman sob moment. And I don't know, Dr. Taz, if you've had any of these or anyone listening has. But when the tears just come, streaming down your face because the pressure is too much. And it came after after my first book came out, and I had been working tirelessly to promote it and doing all the things I was told to do to be successful. And no matter how hard I worked and how much money I spent and how many jobs I worked, there was just never enough me, never enough time. And I wasn't having the difference I wanted to make in the world. And that was when I had the first Superwoman sob moment in a hotel room in Dallas, Texas, when my partner had sent me a text of him and my dog in my house in my garden in California, which I was 2,500 miles away from. And I realized in that moment that I had designed a life that wasn't even the life that I really wanted, that really was nourishing me. And that began this question of why are we so overwhelmed as women? And why haven't we been able to figure out how to make work-life balance work and make it all work and manage it out? Because every woman I know is, even before the pandemic, let's be honest, we've been overstretched and overwhelmed. We're just to a breaking point now. And there are real reasons why.
Well, I think my Superwoman whole theme and branding is a little tongue in cheek, right? I've told this story before, and the book I wrote, Superwoman RX, came out in 2017, way before the pandemic, but really a reflection of the stories of women that I meet every day when I'm talking or speaking or in the patient rooms, and hearing them, tell their story and trying to juggle it all and pull it together. And my daughter saying, well, Mom, write a book to help women. Everyone calls you a superwoman. Maybe you know the secret. And I'm just looking at her going, oh, sweetie, if you only knew what it takes to pull it all together. But, so it is tongue in cheek. I think we are forced to be superwomen. I don't know a woman who is not a superwoman, managing 20 million things and taking care of everyone and earning money and doing all of it. What has happened to us? How did we land here? Our grandmothers fought for women's rights, and, women thousands of years ago didn't have the opportunities we have. Why are we feeling this way and just so exhausted and stressed?
Well, there are real reasons. What I want to say first is to everyone out there, all the superwomen, it's not our fault. I just really want to underline that's one of the big reasons I wrote Overwhelmed and Over It, because what I've seen as women is we become so resilient that we've become too tolerant of the ways that we're expected to work and what we're supposed to be able to manage and handle from the outside systems and also from ourselves. And when I was doing the research of this question of WTF, how come we were still stuck in this thing, and how come women are less happy, more sick, more stressed out than we were in the 1970s before we got all these rights. And so I actually had some pretty deep conversations. So I went back to the source. I'm like, let me go back and talk to the women who are actually on the front lines in the 60s and 70s. And I got to talk to people, including Gloria Steinem.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was great. I had a one-on-one conversation with her, and they all said the same thing. It was very clear. This is what happened. Well, here's what happened. The message was never, you can do and be and have it all. The message was, you can do and be anything but you have to make choices. So just remember that this choices, right? So it's like, I'm like, choices, like we kind of know that, but then we really have been, I'm like, we didn't get that message. We were said, you can do and be and have it all. And so I got deeper, and I'm like, why don't we really get that? And basically the message and the reality is the systems didn't change in the 70s and 80s when women entered the workforce. We assimilated into systems that were not built for women or really humans' best interest. So we just took more on because we had to, right? So it's like we put on shoulder pads and we got little bow ties and we cut our hair, we climbed the ladders, and we played a game that was, was built to suck as much out of people as possible. And we weren't in places of power or influence to make it different. And now we are. But I think what I see with a lot of women and why I wrote this book is because even really powerful, smart women like you and I and everyone here, we don't actually see what's really happening because we're like fish in a fishbowl. Yeah. We've just assimilated to it. We're just trying to keep our heads above the water. And I think that's the gift of this year of like, why are we working this way? Because this way of working isn't actually working for any of us. I don't think.
So true. I would say even for me, like I love everything I do, but the forced slowdown and not being on a plane I took my first trip last weekend, but not being on a plane for, all these months has given me some bandwidth and probably saved some relationships and some things going on in our family that I didn't realize, were happening, quite honestly, because I was so just running around, right? So stressed. So I think there have been some gifts to this madness, as challenging as it's been for so many of us. And Overwhelmed and Over It, you encourage women to embrace the power of their fierce feminine heart. Can you explain that to me and to us and what you mean by that?
So I really believe our power center is our heart. And I think our heart informs our brain, not so much the other way around. And when a woman can get really in touch with her heart, two things happen. One, she becomes like that mama bear, that fierce cougar who's like not on my watch, like that will protect her cubs, but will also protect herself. And so there's a way I really believe if women's hearts around the world woke up, we would all look around and be like, the way we're working, the way the society is set up, this is it's ridiculous. No more. I always say I have this fantasy, way before the pandemic, I'd be like, what if every woman just stood up and said, I'm not working this way anymore. We're not designing our society this way anymore. The world would be like, oh my God, they're for realio. And they would they'd have to listen to us. And I think that part, that fierceness, you mentioned your daughter.
Yes.
And I don't have my own physical children. I decided not to be a mother in that way, but I have a heart for the children of the world and the generations to come. And when we see 9-year-olds coming home and asking their mothers to go on anti-anxiety medicine because the stress is too much, and when it's commonplace knowledge that incoming freshmen are referred to as crispies because they're so burned out going into high school, we have to look around and be like, oh, what's happening to our children? What's happened to us? And so that fierce feminine heart, I remember when I was speaking to a group of women about 7 years ago, and I was sharing about this, take more on, too bad women suck it up. And I'm like, what do all you women think? And Dr. Taz and everybody, it was perfect. This little petite woman jumps out of her seat and she's 8 months pregnant. And she just yells, "That's BS." She said it. I don't know if I can say it on there, but that's BS. And it was here's this mother, right? Pregnant with the next generation, willing to stand up and say, actually, we're not going to do it that way anymore. And not be raging lunatics and not, just, spouting into the Facebook, but actually from that fierce, grounded, rooted place I call fierce grace, to actually say, how do we do this differently?
So how do you do that? How do you tap into that place? I mean, I know I try really hard and I have all kinds of tools in place for me, but, there's still a big block here, and energy healers have sensed it. And some of it's from expectations from years ago when I was a child, but tapping into it when we can, we do get incredibly powerful and we get incredibly intentional and we attract so much amazing stuff into our lives. What have you found is the best way for us to lead from here and to learn from here before we get all jumbled up here, right? Like, oh my God, you know, before all that starts, what's the best way to get back in here? And by in here, if you're listening and not watching, I'm pointing to my heart and the jumbling with my head.
It's interesting because I often say all my work is about the heart. And when I grew up in the Midwest in Chicago. I have my MBA. I didn't know anything about my heart until I had a big wake up call from the universe and realized, wow, I just almost designed an entire life that I didn't even want because I wasn't really in touch with what my heart really desired and what was my soul design. And because I was afraid to feel, I didn't really want to feel what was going on in there. And I sure didn't want to admit there was any fear in there.
Right.
And so this is the thing. This is where our self-empowerment comes in. We could name a litany of lists of the systemic reasons why we're stuck in burnout. We could, but the real power comes from actually looking in our own hearts and going into those deeper reasons for why do you strive so hard? Why do we grind? Why do we push? Why do we self-sacrifice? Why do we have identified 13 different ways that we overgive and sacrifice ourselves? There's overcompensating, overpromising, over extending. And we do it because there are these wounds inside of our hearts that are imprints that come from, all the things I always say. We were born on this planet. We were like, yay, I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be amazing. I've got gifts. You've got gifts. And then you're like, oh, I just met someone who's been here for a little longer than me. Well, whambo. And so that happens to us. And we develop all these, these coping mechanisms, and they become more than beliefs. They become imprints. They become imprints, emotional imprints, cellular imprints, physical imprints. And I think that as part of us as women, we become so we become so strong. Like a lot of women I work with, they're like, it's weak to be needy. It's weak to need support. And I actually think it's the opposite. It's like wise to know the support that you need versus this invincible superwoman facade. And or the flip side is kind of the martyr self-sacrificing.
Right.
So you got to go in there and you got to go into the feels and you got to go into the fear and get really real with yourself about what's in there, and then take the journey. You don't got to sit on a couch for 20 years. You just got to take your power to actually understand how your own heart works.
And are there ways to tap into that power? Is there a way, like, is there a particular method you like to use to tap into that power? What would you tell the women listening that get it, but they don't know how to do it?
Yeah, I would say there's two places to start. One place, it's so funny because I totally turned off my phone, but there every day at 1:08, my alarm goes off and it tells me it's time to surrender. So it's funny that I tried to put my phone on airplane mode and it keeps going off. So yeah, there you go. Surrender control. You're not in control. So that's number one. Like there's developing a deeper level of trust with the universe. And like, I don't actually know how to let go of control if you don't have a trust in something that is bigger than all of you, whatever that is. Everyone, whether you believe it's the trees or you think it's God or the divine or spirit or whatever, there has to be something that you have a trust in. And that's been part of my path for sure. And I think that starts with number one, this is a practice that I think is necessary, which is how you start your day is how you live your day. What are you connecting with in the first hour of your morning? If we just started very basic. So how many of you, we can do a little poll here, have ever reached for your phone, gone on social media, turned on the news, connected to something other than yourself, what the bigger thing, America or the earth or the people you live with in the first hour of your morning?
Everyone I know.
Right? And so when we do that, you invite all of that energy into your field. You've just let the outside world's emotions and swirl and whatever. And so you're like a windsock with no pole. You're not connected to your own body. You're not connected to your own being. How are you today? Did you even look in the mirror to even, to understand that? So that's the first place I tell everyone to start. My rule is in the first hour of your day, no outside connection with anything but yourself and the people around you. And in the book, I get into like a recipe of the 4 points of connecting to the divine, the universe, connecting to the earth, connecting to the self, and connecting to somebody else that's a form of love. And that kind of stabilizes you for the morning and it gets you centered in yourself. And so that's one of the first practices. And the second practice I would say is when you feel yourself in the moment, stressed, stretching, pushing, swirled up, twizzlered up, to
Mhm.
stop. You got to reharmonize yourself and get curious about what's actually going on in your heart. And it's just a matter of walking away from whatever you're doing. Hear the words stop, pause, slow down, harmonize. And then I always put my hand on my heart and I'll just be like, what's going on in there? Like, what am I feeling right now? What am I afraid of right now? What am I trying to make happen? This just happened, a half hour ago, because everything started to speed up and I was feeling stressed out about something that was in my field that's out of my control. That's a sign when you start to speed up that you're in your mind and not in your heart. And so in that moment, this is how I quit smoking. You stop and you feel what's going on in there. And then you can ask yourself a very simple question. What do I need? What do I need right now in this moment?
All of those are such great techniques. Now, does harmonic defiance have anything to do with this overall, like tapping back into your heart, leading from your heart, and then creating the life you want?
It does. Harmonic defiance is the superpower. And I know you like superpowers. I'm all about the superpower.
All about the superpower.
We're all about the
Amazing.
superpower.
Yes.
So harmonic defiance, this is one of my favorite superpowers. And I would love to just read it from the book because I wrote it so well and it's just easier for me to read it.
Yeah,
so here's
absolutely.
the feminine superpower of harmonic defiance is. The feminine superpower of harmonic defiance is choosing to defy the systems and realities that do not work for you, not by ranting and raging, but by doing things differently in wise ways that cultivate harmony. It's choosing to proactively create new realities by how you design your life, lead within your organization, community, and family, and show up in your relationships. I love this part. You don't ask for permission. You just choose what's in harmony and you do it.
I love it.
And that happens in small ways, like small decisions, whether it's like I've worked with women who are like, I have to start work at 7:30. I'm like, and most of the time, 90% of the time, it's actually not really true. It's a mandate that's come down. And we work with them. I'm like, well, what if you didn't start till 8? Especially now, I'm like, who's going to know? I'm like, take your power back, lady, and just like, and so like, give yourself that half hour to like big life design decisions where you make a shift in how you're operating because how you're operating isn't sustainable. And you don't post it on social media. You don't tell your family who's not going to support you. You don't even tell your boss. You just start making the changes. And then people watch you and they're like, you could just move to an island. And I'm like, yeah, well, you can just move to an island, so it's like that part of getting like, and one of the things I love about harmonic defiance is that it's not about ranting and raging in what is called wasting your chi. And so Ann Richards, I love like looking back at like amazing women who have been in the past. So Ann Richards was the governor of Texas. She happened to also be the mother-in-law of one of my students. And Sharon, when I was writing the book, told me that she had asked Ann, what did you do to deal with the big boy politics of Texas? She was, must be infuriating. And she said, I just look around and look at them and just say to myself, I'm not going to waste my chi on that.
Oh, I love that. She knew about chi?
She knew about chi.
Oh my God, go Texas. I love it.
So it's like, I give that to everybody. Put it in your back pocket and just be like, in that moment of like, are you going to waste your chi on that? Because that's what we're talking about, right? You know this because you teach this. This is what your life force is everything. It's great. You don't have life force, you have nothing.
Exactly. And it's how we sustain it and preserve it and build it that really determines kind of what happens next. You also talk about stress and so many women feel stress, and I know this is all connected. What do you recommend in terms of releasing stress every day and getting rid of stress on a daily basis? You talked about the first hour of the day. You talked about tapping into harmonic defiance, like not, just making the right choices. How do we release stress when we're getting super stressed? And I know someone listening might be like, okay, I get it, but the practicalities of all of this, I have bills to pay, I have this to do, I have that to do, and then the swirling starts again, and then people get stuck. How would you navigate them out of that?
So first of all, it's not about time. So any BS baloney pants you got in there, but I need more time. I've taught these things to women who have 3 kids, 7 goats, and like a husband. And it's not about time. It's actually, there's a whole other we could do a whole series on time and space and getting out of, it's not about more time.
I would love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll put that to the side, but it's about
Okay.
creating space for yourself. And if you've ever had the experience where you actually like meetings fall off your calendar and all of a sudden you can breathe and
Yep.
like things flow into the right place. That's the power. That's the power of creating space. Another superpower, Dr. Taz. The
Oh my
experience of
gosh.
creating
Love it.
space. And so you got to start where you are. And so I always say, start where you are by bookending your day. So how you start your day is going to determine how you live your day. How you end the last hour of your day directly correlates to how you're going to wake up and how you're going to feel the next day. And so it's the practice of downshifting. So just start with the last hour of your day and what are you putting into your mind? What are you putting into your emotions? What are you putting into your energetic field? I mean, yogic science teaches we have 10 bodies, right? Not just one body. So if you're on Facebook in your bed, an hour before you go to sleep, all of those people come into your consciousness with you. You're watching, I love Frankie and Grace, and I love I love Outlander occasionally. I just love watching it the last hour of the night because I would wake up and I'd be thinking of like Jamie and like, in Outlander, and Frankie and Grace, right? So like that just the last hour. So you start to downshift. You turn all the lights off except for lights that go up this way. I put my special robe on. I don't eat any sugar in that last hour, even if it's a brownie, which I love. And this is the other part. Know your self-sabotaging habits for releasing stress. Stop trying to hide them. Stop trying to pretend you don't have them. I always say, know your top 4 or 5. And sometimes you're good. Me, it's all about sugar, brownies, red wine, and pasta. And it's okay sometimes. Sometimes you're like, I choose the brownie. I don't choose the whole pan. Or I choose to have a half a bottle of wine tonight, but not 4 nights in a row. So that when you start to realize, oh, I'm repeating this pattern, you say to yourself, I'm managing my stress in an unhealthy way. And you do what I just went back to. What's going on in my heart? What's going on? Because there's something you're not getting that you need. And then you ask yourself, what do I need that I'm not getting? I just did this because I've had a book come out and I've been, like you, like all of us, like we're out in the world achieving.
Right.
And I was like, I just had another glass of wine. Wait a wine again. And I'm so noticing the pattern. And I just got really quiet one morning in my meditation. And I was like, what do I need? And I'm like, I just need my mornings back for me, because in this book release, I could wake up in the morning and I'm like, I do a very short practice and then I'm on. And my space for me had kind of went like this. And so I'm reclaiming my morning space for me. And so this morning I woke up and I had something very important to do, but instead I made myself some coffee and I worked on my journal and I did a little wisdom card reading for myself and I did my yoga and I went outside and I'm like, I have to have the space. I can't, I'm not feeling nurtured. I'm not feeling nurtured. And if I'm not feeling nurtured, I'm just going to keep nurturing everyone else. And eventually I will revolt. And my revolts usually cost thousands of dollars. So it's like, I be compassionate with yourself, be curious with yourself. I don't know that I think enlightenment, and I don't know what your opinion is, Dr. Taz, on this, is like, know your 5 self-sabotaging things.
I love that. I think
and love yourself with them and be with them. Just don't fall into the chronic habit with them.
I think this is also so many superpowers, right? I was trying to keep a little mental list here. We have harmonic defiance. We have leading from the heart. We have creating space. Did I miss one? I think.
Well, we just added, I didn't name it, but it's the superpower of receiving. And that's a big part in the middle of the chapter, all about the heart. Part of the reason we are so burned out, overwhelmed, and all of it is because we're not receiving what we need. We're like completely out of balance. Give. We're like banks that give withdrawals that don't take in or retain enough deposits. And I remember one of the breakthroughs that I had, probably right before it was after my first book, and I went to acupuncture. It's the way I keep myself healthy. And I was in a burnout cycle I couldn't see, where I would work really hard, give a lot, and then every 3 months I would crash. And so I was seeing this acupuncturist, Dr. Fang. It took him a year to catch on to me. I would go in, noodles in, take the herbs, be better. 3 months later, same thing. So after a year, I go in and he just puts he doesn't put any needles in, he just puts his hands on my belly. And he says these words to me: retain. And he says it like like 3 times. And it like, when you have an epiphany and the whole thing goes through and I was like, retain my life force. Oh my God, like retain my life force. Like, just like you learn to save money, right? Retain your life force. Cause I was giving, draining, get sick, burn out, and then I would refill. And so the rule is never serve from your reserves, retain, don't drain your life force. And one way to do this, if you do this real quick, kind of, I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, but this is one practice. This would be the practice top 3 that has kept me out of burnout. And it's called the life force check-in and receiving practice. So here's how it goes. Dr. Taz, you do it. I'll do it. Everyone do it. Helps if you put your hand on your heart and that one hand on your belly. You don't have to, but helps to just kind of connect in with yourself. So just take a breath, an inhale and an exhale, and just bring all your awareness into yourself. And we're going to do a life force reading. Kind of imagine that if you were like a chalice, with your chalice like 100% being full, or you could also be like an energy charge being 100% full. What's your life force level right now on a scale of 0 to 100? So 100 is full, 50 is half, and 0 is like empty to dead. And ask your inner wisdom for a number.
Should I tell you mine?
Yeah, you tell me yours.
Okay, it's 60. I got a 60.
I got a 61. Okay, I'll tell
You're
you.
kidding.
No.
That's crazy. Okay.
I'll tell you the scale in a moment. So the second question is, what do you need to receive today? What do you need to receive today?
I got love.
I got joy in the creative process. See how I'm rubbing my heart because it's an interesting way. My body's just naturally doing that. So here's the scale. If you're a 75 and above and you go into the world and you give and you don't receive, you're going to be okay, but always better to receive. If you're between a 50 and a 75 and you don't receive what you need, you're going to start going to that half point. Once you're at the half point, that's when you start to drain faster. You're in the stem of the chalice. You're serving from your reserves. If you're a 50 to 25, you actually have to shift how you're giving that day and change the way you show up, ask for more support, move meetings. If you're below a 30, you are in danger zone. You are probably have physical illness setting into your body. And this is why this practice is so important. I've done it every day. Is you will know before you hit burnout, before you hit the 50. So and it's never a Tahiti trip. It's never that. It's these really simple things. Like when I did it this morning, I was at a 71 and and what I needed to receive was patience for people. So it's interesting to me. I've dropped 10 points since this morning. But before I got on with you all, I got Twizzlered out. And I know that's why I dropped 10 points, because that emotional twirl.
I had, I'm on the East Coast. So I've had a whole day of a lot of Zoom meetings and they drained me a little bit. I prefer the person-to-person interaction. So I know why I don't know where I started, but I'm going to try that from now on. And is it your intuitive body that automatically kind of knows the answer that we're checking in with?
Yeah, that's you talking to your heart. What do I need to receive today? Exactly. Your intuition, that fierce feminine wisdom. And then you design your day like that.
Around that.
And I do it on both ends. But my partner and I check in the morning together and we check in the evening together. And so then we both know what each other needs. And you can also do this with your kids. There's a story of a woman named Rebecca in the book who does it with her 4-year-old son. But she asks inside, what does your heart need today? So little Joaquin, 4 years old, says things like, my heart needs to be nice to my cousin. My heart needs hugs. So here's this little 4-year-old, she's teaching to be in connection to his heart. Can you imagine the man he's going to grow up to be?
Amazing. Well, this has been inspirational for me for sure. I know so many women are experiencing burnout and feeling overwhelmed. And, the pandemic has just heightened that to a certain extent. They were already having those issues and now they're juggling even more roles. So this is so timely. Where can people find your book or connect with you if they want to? Give us your details.
Yeah, the best way to stay connected to me is through my podcast, Feminine Power Time, because just like you, I love the podcasting format. It's a great place for us to have meaningful conversations called Feminine Power Time. And you can also check me out on my website, Christina Arylo, and it's just ARYLO, or the book overwhelmedandoverit.com. That's a good place. It'll take you right there. And if you want more on the morning practice stuff, check out dailyflowpractice.com. It's where I did a half-hour video on some of the concepts on it and a smaller little booklet that goes with it. And that's also on my website too. So those are some good places to start.
Wonderful. Well, this has been helpful. I hope you guys all got that information. The website again is dailyflowpractice.com. I'm going to check it out as well. Thank you for joining me today. We will have to do another session on time and space. I've been diving into that world a little bit and I find it fascinating as well. So I'll probably have my team reach out to get you back on.
Sounds good. I love talking about the superpower of creating space. It is a definite superpower and we all need it.
We definitely do. And I've seen my life shift too, as I've sort of let things open up a little bit. But for everybody else, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Superwoman Wellness. And remember, we are on Spotify as well. So rate and review it and share it with your friends. And if you guys do so and email me, it's hello@drtaz.com. I'll send you a free bottle of boost to keep you super powered. I'll see you guys next time.